Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are going to get into something pretty serious.
Yeah.
Reliance Industries limited its performance in the third quarter of fiscal year 2025. Now, I know what you might be thinking, like, oh, no, no, financial statements, but stick with us.
Yeah.
Because RIL is not your average company. They are like a massive conglomerate with a hand in like everything. So we've got their official media release and all those fun financial statements ready to go. And we're going to break down like all the juicy bits. So get ready to dive deep because with all the different businesses that Reliance is involved in, this is going to be way more exciting than just staring at a spreadsheet.
Right.
I mean, isn't that kind of crazy?
Oh, absolutely. RIL is like a miniature India. You can learn so much about how the Indian economy is doing just by looking at their businesses. They are in everything, from your phone to the fuel in your car. It's really quite remarkable.
Okay, so let's jump into the headline numbers from this quarter, shall we? Reliance saw a 7.7% increase in revenue compared to last year, reaching a massive euro 267,186 crore. Now, for all of us who don't think in crores, that translates to over $31 billion,
Wow.
their profit. Up 11.7% to euro 21,930 crore, which is well over $2.5 billion.
Those are very impressive numbers, especially considering the global economic uncertainties we've been seeing. For a company as huge as Reliance to achieve almost 8% revenue growth, that's a real sign of strength. It's not easy to do that.
It's like they're defying gravity.
They certainly seem to be on the right track.
And even Mukesh Ambani himself said in the press release that these results reflect Reliance's inherent strength and resilience. So clearly they're feeling pretty confident.
Of course, and rightfully so. But what I find even more fascinating? It's how the different parts of Reliance's business are performing. It's not just one big success story. There are areas of like exceptional growth,
Yeah.
and then others that are, facing some unique challenges.
It's kind of like a mixed bag depending on which segment you're looking at. Okay, so speaking of exceptional growth, let's talk about the rock star of the quarter, Geo Platforms. They blew it out of the water with a 25.9% profit jump, reaching 6,857 crore. This digital dynamo is unstoppable.
It's no surprise they've made some really strategic decisions, like revising tariffs, expanding their 5G network, and they've got a massive 5G subscriber base now. Over 170 million, can you believe that?
I can't even imagine 170 million of anything. It's incredible.
It really is.
And on top of that, they're growing their home broadband and digital service offerings.
They're really hitting all the right notes.
Oh, and you know what else? Geo Airfiber, their wireless broadband service, it's just booming, especially in areas outside the major cities.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, they're reaching parts of India that haven't had access to high-speed internet before. And it's a game changer for those communities.
That's fantastic. Not just for the individuals, but for the overall digital development of the country, it's incredibly impactful.
Yeah, I mean, it's like opening up a whole new world of possibilities. And you know what else is really fascinating about Geo? Their push into artificial intelligence.
AI, now that's a game changer.
Right, they're doing things like GeoBrain and Geo AI Cloud.
Geo's really positioning themselves to be a major player in AI, and that's where the future is headed.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. The potential impact on everything from like healthcare to education to how businesses operate, it's huge.
A whole new frontier it is.
Okay, so we've got this massive digital powerhouse in Geo Platforms. But let's not forget about another success story, Reliance Retail. They are also on a roll with a 10.1% profit increase this quarter, hitting 3,485 crore.
They just keep growing.
They do. It's amazing. And they have a winning formula, that's for sure.
Yeah.
They seem to understand the Indian consumer better than anyone else. And they're constantly like innovating and expanding to meet their needs.
You know what amazes me? Their store expansion. They opened like 779 new stores this quarter.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
779 new stores.
In just 3 months. Yeah, they have over 19,000 stores across India now.
That's crazy.
It is, isn't it? And get this, they had 296 million people walk through their doors in just 3 months. That's almost the entire population of the United States.
Whoa, that's a lot of shoppers.
It is.
And it's not just their physical stores driving their growth. Their digital commerce and new commerce initiatives are also doing incredibly well. Those online and integrated shopping experiences now account for 18% of their total revenue.
It shows that they're embracing the future of retail and not just relying on traditional methods.
Yeah, they're not afraid to adapt and try new things. All right, now let's move on to a segment where things are a bit more mixed. Oil to chemicals, or as they like to call it, O2C. They saw a decent 6% revenue increase, reaching 149,595 crore. which is a little over $17.5 billion. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows in this segment, right?
Well, you're right. It is a more complex picture. You know that global energy markets are volatile. There's a lot of uncertainty, but Reliance's OTC business is showing that it's resilient.
Yeah, they're not just sitting back and letting the market dictate their fate. They're being proactive.
Absolutely. They're managing their resources strategically,
Yeah.
focusing on high-value products, and they're also expanding their domestic fuel retailing operations.
Right. And that increase in fuel retailing, it's actually pretty significant. They saw a 43.7% jump in motor spirit and a 22.8% jump in high-speed diesel.
Those are impressive numbers.
Yeah, and it's all connected to the growth of GeoBeep, their fuel retail joint venture.
So they're leveraging their existing partnerships to drive growth. That's smart.
It is. It's interesting how the different parts of Reliance's business can kind of work together to support each other, like a well-oiled machine.
It's a classic example of synergy.
Yeah, exactly.
Connecting their fuel retail business with Geo's digital platform and customer base, they're creating a much more powerful and integrated offering.
It's like they've got all the pieces of the puzzle, and they're putting them together in really clever ways. Okay, so last but not least, let's take a look at the oil and gas segment. Here, the news isn't quite as rosy. Revenue is down 5.2% to 6,370 crore, and EBITDA is down 4.1% to euro 5,565 crore. Not exactly a cause for celebration.
No, not really. This segment is definitely facing some headwinds, primarily because of lower gas and condensate volumes from the KGD6 basin, and lower prices for CBM gas and condensator.
So it sounds like the upstream oil and gas business is really struggling in the current market.
There's no doubt about that. The global energy landscape is shifting, with the push towards renewables and other factors impacting traditional oil and gas operations.
It's a tough time to be in that business for sure.
It is, and it'll be interesting to see how Reliance adapts to these changes.
So it seems like every segment has its own story to tell. Some are thriving, others are adapting, and it's all happening under the umbrella of this one massive conglomerate. It's a lot to wrap your head around, but it's fascinating to see how all these pieces fit together.
It is, isn't it? You got it. Yeah, it is fascinating. You're right. It's like a microcosm of the Indian economy. Just amazing.
It really is.
Right.
But I've got to admit, like when I look at these financial statements, I kind of feel like I'm back in college,
Yeah.
in my economics class, and not in a good way. There's so many numbers, so many acronyms. What should our listeners, and maybe me too, focus on to really understand how RIL is actually doing?
You've hit upon something that's pretty common. A lot of people feel that way about financial statements. They can be a little daunting, but they really don't have to be. Just start with the basics. What's the company's revenue growth? Are they expanding their operations? And most importantly, is their profit increasing?
Okay, so for RL, they're definitely growing their revenue and increasing their profit.
Exactly. They're checking off those boxes. Now next, take a look at their EBITDA margin. That basically tells us how efficiently the company is running its core operations. Before we get into things like interest, taxes, all those fun things.
So a healthy business would have a higher EBITDA margin.
Yes, generally speaking, a higher and more stable EBITDA margin indicates good efficiency and profitability.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And for RIL, their consolidated EBITDA margin is 18%, which is up slightly from last year, so that's a good sign, right?
It is. That means that they're managing costs well and converting revenue into operating profit. And when you start looking at individual business segments, it's helpful to look at the trends, which segments are driving that growth, which ones are maybe facing some challenges, and why.
Right, like we just discussed. Geo Platforms and Reliance Retail are like the powerhouses this quarter, while oil and gas is, not doing as well.
Exactly. And understanding why those trends are happening. Is it because of internal factors, like how well they're running their operations, or external factors, like, what's happening in the global market? That's really key to understanding the full picture.
It's like putting the pieces of a puzzle together,
Yeah.
connecting those numbers to what's actually happening in the real world and seeing how it all influences RL's performance.
Absolutely. You got it. And, one more thing to keep in mind. Always look at a company's debt. Now, RIL does have a significant amount of debt, but they also have a lot of cash reserves. The important thing is to make sure they can manage that debt comfortably and that their cash flow is strong enough to cover their debt obligations.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So overall, it seems like RIL is in a strong position, wouldn't you say? With incredible growth in digital and retail, helping to offset some of the challenges in oil and gas.
I think that's a very good assessment, yes. But here's the thing. In business, it's always about looking ahead. The past is interesting, but it's the future that really matters.
So, what does the future hold for RIL? That's the big question, right?
It is. It is.
So what are your thoughts on that? What should our listeners, all those savvy investors and business enthusiasts out there, what should they be paying attention to when they think about RIL and what might happen?
Well, if I had to choose one thing, I'd say it's their move into artificial intelligence. Geo Platforms is really going all in on AI, and whether they succeed or fail in this area could have a massive impact on their long-term growth.
Yeah, AI seems to be like the high topic these days. Everyone's talking about it. And with Geo's massive reach, their resources, they could really influence how AI develops, not just within the company, but across India.
Exactly. And this goes beyond Geo too. RIL is exploring how to apply AI across their entire range of businesses, from optimizing supply chains to improving the customer experience, potentially even making oil exploration more efficient. The possibilities are really limitless.
It's mind-blowing. It feels like we're on the verge of a tech revolution. But like you said, there's still a lot of uncertainty around AI.
That's right. There are still many unanswered questions. How will AI be regulated? What impact will it have on jobs? And how do we ensure that it's used ethically and responsibly?
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
It has the potential to solve some of the biggest challenges we face, but it also comes with risks. And it will be fascinating to watch how RIL navigates this whole complex landscape.
Absolutely. Another area to watch closely is their commitment to new energy. RIL has made a pledge to become net zero by 2035, which is a pretty bold goal for a company that's built its success on fossil fuels.
That is a big shift. For a company so closely tied to oil and gas, it's a huge change.
It is. And they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're investing heavily in renewable energy sources like solar and hydrogen.
It's a big gamble. But if it pays off, they could become a global leader in sustainable energy.
That's right. But their success in this transition, it won't just depend on, technological advancements, but also on government policies and consumer demand.
It's a complex equation, but it'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out.
And, here's another thing to consider. RIL's international expansion plans. They've been acquiring companies, forming partnerships all over the world, especially in tech and retail. Their success in these international markets could be a major driver of growth for them going forward.
It's a good reminder that RIL is no longer just an Indian company. They're a global player with ambitions that extend far beyond India's borders.
That's right, and that ties into another important point. RIL's future is going to be influenced by what's happening globally. Geopolitical events, trade wars, technological disruptions, all of these factors can have a significant impact on their performance.
Yeah, it's like they're not operating in a bubble.
Yeah.
They're part of a much larger interconnected world.
You know what? This deep dive has been so insightful. I feel like I've learned so much about RIL, but also about the things that are shaping the Indian economy, even the global economy. What really stands out to me is just the sheer scale of RIL's operations and their ambition. It's incredible. They really are a company of incredible scale. I mean, just their ambition is incredible. They're constantly pushing the boundaries, redefining what's possible. It's remarkable.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's a testament to their vision
Yeah.
too, right? And their ability to kind of like adapt to this ever-changing world. It's impressive.
It is. It is.
But even after spending all this time with these reports, I still feel like we've only just scratched the surface,
Yeah.
you know?
There are so many layers to their operations, and they're constantly evolving and changing. It's hard to keep up.
I know what you mean. It's like trying to hold on to a wave.
Exactly.
But that's what makes it so interesting, right? There's always something new happening with REL. A new initiative, a new acquisition, a new challenge to overcome. It's like a masterclass in how to run a modern business in today's world.
Yeah, it's pretty inspiring, actually. So for our listeners who are now totally hooked on Reliance Industries, what's the one thing you think they should really keep their eyes on in the coming months? What's the big question mark hanging over RAL's future? That's a good question. Let me think. If I had to pick just one thing, I'd say it's the convergence of their digital ambitions and their green energy ambitions. Can they really become a global powerhouse in both artificial intelligence and renewable energy at the same time? Those are two massive undertakings, each with its own unique set of challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, it's a big question. Can they pull off this dual transformation?
Yeah.
Will they be able to use AI to drive their growth while also becoming a leader in sustainability?
And the answer to that question has implications, not just for Reliance, but potentially for India's economic future as a whole
Mm.
and India's role on the global stage.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, but it's also an incredible opportunity. If they can do it, they could be a role model for other companies around the world who are trying to do the same thing.
Absolutely. They have the potential to show everyone that it is possible to be both a tech leader and a champion for sustainability.
It's going to be fascinating to see how it all unfolds.
It is. It's a journey worth watching. And I have a feeling there will be many twists and turns along the way.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely not going to be boring. Well, this deep dive into RIL's Q3 performance has been incredible. I've learned so much, and I have a feeling we'll be talking about Reliance again very soon.
I agree. They're a company that never fails to surprise.
All right, well, to all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Reliance Industries. We hope you found it informative and insightful and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Keep those questions coming, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.